Hi, and welcome to Season 2 of Big Sound Small Town, the podcast that spotlights the talented and diverse musicians in small towns and communities. This season we're branching out to include the community of people who make it possible for musicians to be able to perform their music, the producers, the recording engineers, the venue owners, and many others, and as always, the small town musicians. Remember, small town doesn't mean small talent. Hear their stories. I met with Jimmy at Hannah's Coffee Shop on East Marion Street in Shelby, North Carolina in early December of 2019. Little did we know at the time what would lie ahead. Of course, we were here to tell Jimmy's story, but Jimmy said he would also like for it to be a tribute to his late brother, David Wilson. And I think that Jimmy did a really fine job in doing that. The second music clip on here is Jimmy and David playing together in a version of Jimmy Rehab, I'm sure. It's a really good story. He did a really good job, and I think you should give it a listen. Today on Big Sound, Small Town, we're in Hannah's Coffee Shop on Main Street in Shelby, North Carolina. My guest is Ocean Boulevard guitarist Jimmy Wilson. Welcome to the show, Jimmy.
Thank you, sir. Good to be here.
So what's going on with Ocean Boulevard these days?
Well, we have had an incredible year. We're wrapping it up. We played last week at a Christmas party, and we're playing this coming Saturday at a private Christmas party.
Oh, yeah.
And that's right. We were excited about that. Played for Kings Mountain Cotillion last week at the Gaston Country Club, and we're playing for the Revelers Dance Club at the Cleveland Country Club this weekend, Saturday night. Yeah, we've been all over the place. Had a really good year. We've been from Wilmington to Morganton to in our little world of travel. We play the new amphitheater at Forest City, which is fantastic. It's amazing.
Yes,
it is really something.
Well, now, all right, let's go with this a minute. Are you guys still totally a beach band, or are we off in a little different direction?
Well, that's kind of what led me into it, you see. All of the beach bands, even the Embers and the Catalinas and those guys, they've had to diversify their set lists.
I played with Bo Schwantz in high school. So.
Yeah, Bo, he's incredible. Yeah, that's what a legend. But
even he's had to change.
You have to diversify because of attrition. I mean, there was even in the 40s and the beginnings of Carolina beach music. You know that those fans, they're not here with us anymore, and it's transferred down. But there's still more people than you think that love that.
Yeah.
How I ended up with them, and we'll talk a little bit more about my brother David in a minute. But I was I'm friends with Louis Grigg first, and Louis is a drummer, and Louis and I, we palled around, and I ended up every year for David we would have a benefit, and I'll get into more of that later. But it ended up we had a situation where we needed someone to play on short notice, and I called Louis and I said, "Hey, can you guys help us out here? We need a band, and we'll do whatever you want." And he said, "Let me talk to the guys." And he said, he called me back and he said, "Sure, man, we're happy and proud to do it." And I said, we tried to discuss terms, and they did it pro bono, which I argued with them. No, we can get you something. No, they wouldn't do it. They said there's only one condition. I said, what? He said, you got to sit in with us. And I said, oh, no, Louis, I don't know any beach music. He said, oh, we play more than that. We play a lot of soul, rhythm and blues from the '60s. So he said, you'll know most of these songs. So they taught me. I said, well, I do have a volume knob on my guitar, so I turned that thing off, and so ended up we played with them, and their guitarist time was Bo Beatty. So Bo and I got up there and sat in with them, and we hit it off. I mean, everybody, we sounded good. Just one of those situations when you just walk into a situation where you felt comfortable. No, I didn't know hardly any of them except for Louis. Well, and Rod. I knew Rod, the keyboard player, Rod Mooney. But we had a great time, and I used my volume knob a couple of songs. A couple of beach music songs, they're harder than any songs I've tried. I mean, with the chord structures, but exactly. So as it turns out, a few months later, I ran into Tim at the grocery store, and Tim Wright's our founding partner. He's our managing partner, Ocean Boulevard, and since 1983, this band's been around. Tim's been right there, so. He said, hey, are you playing with anybody? And I'm like, not at the moment. I was playing with some really cool people, but I'm not really right now. And he said, well, Bo Beatty, our guitar player, Bo developed a neuropathy in his hand, and Bo had to quit playing for a while. And well, great guy, incredible guitarist. And I thought, well, that's horrible. And he said, well, we got some gigs, and would you mind coming up and just seeing how it worked? And so I did, and it's worked out. That's almost 5 years ago too. So almost 5 years. Yes, it does. But I'm very fortunate. These guys, if you'd have told me 10 years ago that you'd be playing with Beach Music Band, I might have laughed, and they might have laughed if they said Jimmy Wilson's going to be playing guitar for you. They might have said, no, not in a million years. But
when I found out you were playing with them, I was a little shocked.
Yeah. So, but Tim did say, he said, well, we're wanting to diversify our set list a little more. And I said, well, Tim, I'll be diverse because I've played rock music mainly for years, but love it. Love our set list. Everything we play. It's Phil Loveless is one of the best horn players around. I mean, I've never heard anybody play like Phil. And Stan Bumgarner's our singer, and if you've never heard Stan from Cherryville, North Carolina, he can really wail. Louis, he keeps you toe tapping and you hands clapping, and Rod is our resident musical genius. Yeah. And so Rod keeps us straight there. Incredible keyboard player, and sings and plays guitar too. Yeah, we play, for example, Christmas parties. We'll do an instrumental, Christmas song instrumental. Sometimes you'll need to play warm up music, or they want a little dinner music or something like that. We can pipe it in sometimes. We'll play an instrumental. But yeah, we try to get everybody up and get a little action going on, and they, and once the party gets going,
what your crowd does is dance.
That's what they do. And these two specific groups we're playing for, that's what they do. So they welcome. Sometimes it's a little hard to get people up and going, but that's okay. We're still playing, just like you do.
Well, that's one of those things I learned from a fellow I played with, Louis Ledford. He told me if you can't dance to it, you're out of work, because that's what they come to see.
That's right.
We'd do songs, and we'd do them really good.
Yep.
If nobody danced to them, fine, there's how to sit.
Well, famous, everybody knows Steven Tyler from Aerosmith. He always says, your key there is don't bore us, get to the chorus.
That's true.
Play that song that everybody can sing, everybody knows, and everybody can dance to. If you're not going to do that, then you'll have a different crowd.
Yeah, you'll have a different crowd. But that's a good crowd. A crowd that comes to dance is a crowd that returns.
Right, exactly. So we've had a real good time, and I appreciate being in that band. I appreciate them letting me be in the band, because it keeps me As you get older and things happen in your life, you realize that it's one of the most important things to me.
And I feel lucky to still get to play at my age.
Exactly. Well, that's right.
It's a good deal.
Yep.
It's cursed too, but it's
Hey, it's what we do.
You want to take it back to the very first time that you decided, hey, maybe I want to play music?
Okay, I can do that. And you'll get a kick out of this, I think. Okay. So, well, the first music I was exposed to is church music. Yeah. Of course, you go to church, you're in the choir. My parents both sang in the choir, okay. And my grandmother sang in the choir, my grandfather, and then my great aunt. She was the organist and pianist at Double Shoals Baptist Church, all right? And so she had a piano. So when my brother David and I were young, we were around music all the time. And Aunt Faye, who was the organist pianist, she would play. We'd stay with her while our parents went to work. And Aunt Faye would play all the old, spirituals, but she'd play fun stuff too. She had a great sense of humor. So that got, as most musicians that I know, that kind of is the basis and staple is the gospel and spiritual music. But I can remember my earliest memory is watching Buck and Roy every Saturday night. And I remember we had David and I would stand in front of the television, and we had a fireplace in our den, and Dad and Mom, they had the popcorn poppers, that looked like a banjo, and then we had the broom. So David and I would stand there and play the popcorn popping thing and the banjo, the broom, like we were playing banjo and guitar. And Roy Clark, that was one of my, even, when he passed away, it was a couple of years. So Roy was people don't understand what he was. He was an incredible studio musician. And Buck.
Man. That's country.
So right. So that was my earliest memory of saying, hey, I want to do this. This is something I want to do.
Did you know then you wanted to be a guitar player? From watching that?
Yeah, pretty much. But I remember my parents. Okay, so talking about family. Okay, so I also had some cousins who were influential. My mother has two sisters, and her oldest sister, Gail, had two kids, Stephen and Deirdre, and her other sister, Diane, had three kids, Joe, Audra, and Andy. So we never did see Stephen and Deirdre a lot. They lived in Durham, but Stephen and Deirdre, we'd see them at Christmas every year. So but we hung around with Joe and Andy and Audra all the time because they lived in Bowling Springs. So Joe was like my older brother. He was a couple years older than me, and then it was me and Audra the same age, and David was younger than Andy was younger. So we played all the time. But Joe was really musical, and he got into Elvis. Okay. Well, so then my dad and Mom ordered David and I K-Tel Records, two albums. One was just a K-Tel Elvis knockoff. It just had him on the cover with his Hawaii Aloha. Yeah. No. It was Elvis. It was all Elvis on the record. Yeah, it was like maybe 10 songs of those K-Tel things that they threw together. And then it was a 3-album set called Chuck Berry and Friends, which had a whole one album was all Chuck, and then the next album was Little Richard the Platters. So that's what I listened to. That was what the other kids. I don't know my age. I don't know that they were listening to that, but I loved it. And I wore grooves, and I wore the record out listening to it, and I'd stand around and act like I was playing. So along the same time, my dad got to playing guitar a little bit. He got a knockoff Gibson Dove acoustic. It was a copy or something, but anyway. But then he got into it, and he learned how to play. He got the Roy's Big Guitar book, and the Chet Atkins learned guitar. And Dad learned a bunch of chords, and he got pretty good. So David and I, he taught us a few things, and but then Dad got so good, he got Ray Ledford to build him a nylon string classical guitar, which he still has.
I was getting ready to ask you, is that still in the family?
It's still in his house. Yep, sure is. I'd love for you to see it. He would too.
Would you send me a picture of it?
I will. I might see him tomorrow, and I'll try to take a picture of it.
That's another side project I got going on, is trying to get pictures of all Ray Leffler's guitars.
Well, I can date this. He can tell you probably pretty close to when Ray built it for him. I think it was 76.
Okay.
I think that was made. I don't think it was any earlier than that, but it might have been. And I think it's around 76. But it's yeah. And so I never did. I think David might have taken lessons from Ray, but I never did anyway. So it just kind of evolved from there. David and I and Joe Harris is who I'm talking about, my cousin. Joe was always the guy that got into the music.
Right.
So we always, since he was older. Well, he had a guitar, and so my other cousins actually one year we met them at Christmas, and Joe and them had moved to Hickory. I remember that. Sorry, long story, but I was probably 9 years old or something, about the same time we started playing guitar. And our older cousins, they came in from Durham, and they were into Kiss, big time. That's all they talked about, Kiss. Oh, they saw Kiss in Charlotte, and they were a little sanctimonious. They kind of were older kids, so they.
What were you listening to at the time? Still Buck and Roy?
Buck and Roy, no, Elvis and Chuck Berry and Elton John, and at that time, I guess KC and the Sunshine Band was big. Stuff like that on the radio. Carpenters.
Yeah. So Kiss is a great departure from that.
It was a great departure. Remember, my father always said, he still to this day says, I knew there was something wrong when you guys took down the posters of Farrah Fawcett and Roger Staubach and put up pictures of Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley on your wall. He said, there's something wrong with you guys. So we all got into Kiss, and we played, and Dad went and bought us, David and I, an electric guitar, and I think he bought it from Vic Branton, who's still around. If you know Vic, he bought, it's like a 70 or 68 or 70 Fender Mustang, blue with the racing stripe. Okay, so it was just
I bet you wish you still had that.
I do, because Kurt Cobain ended up making them worth money. When the grunge took over, because they were really not a great guitar. But yeah, I've got a picture of it. My mom thinks got a picture of it somewhere. But yeah, I got that, a Silvertone amp with a fuzz wah pedal, which was all I needed right then. And then we ended up getting a drum kit for us. He got us a drum kit that was a used old Ludwig set that somebody had painted kind of a terrible glossy candy apple red and then put glitter on top of that. So it was a terrible paint job. I remember the bass drum cover had a picture of Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner, and had Plum Country, Plum. It was the name of it. So for whatever reason, that wasn't us. But anyway, so that's my dad and mom. They really, let us. They really did. They helped us out. Yeah. And Dad even framed in our carport and made us a game room, a game room type area where we could go out there and just blast stuff, and he couldn't hear us, so we had the wherewithal, so he could do that. That was great.
Yeah, that is great. So you could turn it up and make it fun.
Right, and we did, and so I would just I learned guitar, and I would sit around and remember playing. We'd still air guitar and pretend like we were playing concerts and stuff. So.
Well, I guess you did the drop. That's still the drop method during that day where you dropped the needle on the record too.
Oh yeah, that's the only way. That's the quickest way anyway.
It was the way.
Yeah.
You bet yourself. You bet yourself by saying, I learned it that way.
Well, I have to go buy new needles from Bobby. And Bobby would act like he wanted, made out of. Well, they were made out of diamonds, but he acted like they were real, Brazilian diamonds or something. So. But yeah, that's the beginnings of it.
So when did you decide that, hey, we can be in a band?
Well,
and did the two of you guys ever play in a band together?
David and I, yeah. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about that. We ended up in high school. Joe, we would see him because Joe got into bands in Hickory, and so David and I never really did play together much when we were in our early teens, like, but we started picking up guitar, and I had a couple of friends. I had a friend had an incredible record collection, and this is now 79, 80, okay? So you start getting into, I listened to, of course, Aerosmith, and then one day I heard Edward Van Halen. So that was oh my goodness.
That was your moment.
We'll go into a little bit more there, but still broad musical taste. And Dave and I started plunking around a little bit. So I got in several bands in high school, played with a lot of great guys around Shelby. And then David was younger. He's 2 years younger than me, so he wasn't quite,
ready for that.
Right. So then he got in a band, and when he was in junior high and high school with Luke Edwards, and then Brian Klontz and Rodney Conley, and they had a band called Iron Horse, which was, they were the talk of the town for a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'll get back to where I was going with that. I wasn't sure, but I always tried to, I knew Joe played in bands, but he was always older and cooler. But the first time I ever played in front of people, I can remember that, and I just thought about it. And this is a name. The name just came in my head of somebody I wish that you could have done this for. Went to Shelby Junior High School, and 7th grade, I believe, they had a sock hop, which, of course, that's dating you too. They called it a sock hop. It wasn't. So it was a junior high school dance. Somebody thought it was a great idea to get Stan Harden to play for a bunch of 7th graders. And Stan was fabulous, but he was Elvis and all his doo-wop stuff, which was great, not for a bunch of 7th graders, So there's a bunch of kids at the dance, and I'll never forget, they knew I could play guitar. And they said, Jimmy, go up there and tell him you want to play that guitar. I'm like, no, you don't. It don't work that way, guys. Even 7th grade, I was like, no way. So I turned around, I looked back, and they were up there talking to Stan. Well, Stan knew me because he and my granddad drank coffee at Suttle's Drug every day. And so all these kids and me, and Stan says, we've got a special surprise for you tonight, kids. Little Jimmy Wilson's going to come up and play some guitar for you. I'm like, holy moly. So there I was. I'm like, okay. I remember exactly what I played. Because I'd been playing for a little bit, and I was fairly accomplished, but not great by any means. And I just remember, what am I going to play? So I played the first notes of Sweet Home Alabama. And the place went nuts.
Yeah,
and I only played just the first part of it, the intro of it. And I'm like, this is good.
Yeah.
Of course, the girls were saying, yeah. So that's what you did it for. But I'm like, I get it now. I do this, and they scream and yell and clap. So the basic,
it rooted
itself in. And I messed around a little bit more, and Stan was like, okay, give me the guitar back, get off stage. But yeah, that was the first time I ever played in front of people, and it took. Then ended up playing, more talent shows, backyard parties, and lots of good people I played with over the years.
When did you get a real band?
So first real band probably was, the first real band I was in was in college, I think. Well, no, there were some good high school bands and backyard bands. But the first real band that I got in, where all the musicians were, we were all on the same level, was in college. I went to Elon for about a minute. And there was some guys that heard, some seniors. I was a freshman. Some seniors came to my dorm room one night. Like, they just busted in the room and said, you play guitar? I'm like, yeah, don't beat me up, They're like, we need you to come up to the orchestra room. And I'm like, okay. So I ended up playing with those guys. Guy's name, drum.
All right, I'm back with Jimmy Wilson, and he's at Elon, and they've accused him of being a guitar player.
Yeah, these guys busted in my room, and they were, of course, big, senior guys, and they're like, we need you to, maybe they told me to play him something, I guess. That's I played him something, and so we met, and we had a band up there, played, a few frat parties and backyard stuff up there. The name of the band, we named it Wild Daddy Cool and the Hubcaps, which is totally corny as hell, but
It is,
but hey, we had fun, and came back home and started playing with David and Luke and Rodney and Brian with that band for a little bit. So then played around a little bit, but really I got married and had kids and raised young'uns and had 3 kids, and yeah, you had to do that. So around 2002, first wife and I, we separated, and so that opened up an opportunity. So David latched on to that because he had been wanting to play for a while, and so that was the beginnings of Jimmy Rehab, which is the name of our band. So we had some friends in Winston-Salem. They had a yearly backyard big show in their party, and a party in their backyard. And they had a band, as the Henshaw, Greg Henshaw got into a band at Chapel Hill with some guys, and they were called the Fidgets.
Okay.
And they were a big college rock band. They played a lot of parties up in the Triangle area back in the day. And they kept on every year. Once everybody got out and got real jobs and stuff, they kept coming back. And so that was a good thing. David and I got with Greg Henshaw and Greg Turion, the drummer, and we hashed up a little bit. And then a couple years later, then David introduced me to the incredible Alan Keever.
Yes,
Alan, yeah.
He was the drummer, eh?
He is incredible. And Dennis Towery and... Well, Dennis wasn't with us at first because they had a band called Enola Gay, which was kind of on the skids. So at first we played with Alan and David and me and Drew and I cannot remember the little kid's name that played with us, little bass player. He was only 17, but he was a cool little kid. I'll think of his name later. I called him Junebug. Anyway, so Drew Stallings played percussion with us too. Drew, he's incredible too. So that established, we didn't have a name for the band, but I broke my finger. I was building a house really pretty bad. I had to have pins in it, and I couldn't play for a while. So David sent an email out to all our buddies. We're trying to get together and have that big yearly party. and said Jimmy's has to go through rehab, and he probably can't play for 6 to 8 weeks. And one guy emailed back and said, "Well, Jimmy Rehab sounds like a character off The Sopranos or something, and a great name for a band." So we took that. Yeah. And so Alan and David and Drew and Dennis ended up joining us. Dennis, incredible voice, yeah. And we did a bunch of bars and stuff for a long time. So then, unfortunately, that's when David started getting sick. David started having a little bit of trouble walking around 2006, and then, of course, they didn't want it to. They wanted it to be more of a. They didn't want it to be a neuropathy type thing, but it was. Ended up, he was diagnosed with ALS. So that he played on, though. David played on. I'm gonna tell you. Some stuff I'll share with you. I don't have it with me tonight. I wish I did, but even when David got to where he couldn't move at all, Sandy, he would make music on his studio. I can't explain it, but he had a little reflective dot that he would stick to his lip, and he could program and make music. So yeah, it's very cool. So, but he played until he couldn't play anymore, and so that ties into the beginning of the interview where we talked about the benefits. His friends decided early on, they said, "We're going to have a benefit for you." And he said, no, you're not going to do it. And they said, "Oh, yeah, we are." And so they insisted. He said, "Well, if you're going to do it," they were saying golf tournament. We're going to have a golf tournament because David really liked to play golf. I don't. But they said, "We're going to have a golf tournament." And he said, "No, if you're going to do a benefit, we're going to do it upright. We're going to have a golf tournament during the day, and then we're going to have a big rock and roll band musical party at night." So we did for 7 years. We had it at the country club. Usually is where it was here in Shelby, and
you have a roving bunch of different people.
Yeah, we had a few. My cousin Joe, he had established a band then, and the band's name was Ponder, and they're still kind of playing. Joe's gone. Joe passed away, and then the guitarist of that band passed away. I don't want to just turn into a sad story, but it's very profound that and that's why you're doing this. It's important. But they came and played. We had, I believe Aaron Morrison played. His guys played for us one year, and then Dennis, Randy Saxon. Randy Saxon would show up at the bars we were playing at sometimes and jump in. Randy was like the sixth Beatle type guy. You know how Randy works, but yeah. But the first benefit we had, it raised a whole heck of a lot of money because David was a respected businessman in Shelby. So David says, "Look, if we're going to do this going forward, I'm going to help other people who don't have the support group that I do." So he turned it into a very benevolent pass the gift, and he would take people from the community who had medical maladies, not necessarily ALS because it was rare, but he helped a lot of people. So that was just so profound and so benevolent. Yeah, and so
that's the type of guy he was.
That's what. Yeah, and I told him, I said, "Man,
one of the nicest guys I've ever met in my life."
Yep, I said, "David, I don't know all this. If it were me instead of you, because we're brothers 2 years apart, you wonder why sometimes."
Yeah.
But I said, "I don't know that would, even be something I would think of." He said, "Oh yeah." He said, your thought process changes when you're faced with something like that.
I don't think I could handle it.
No, that's what I was telling him. I said, I'd be crazy, but it was terrible. It was horrific, but he showed us all how we're supposed to be. So.
Yeah. I agree. There's a lot to take from that.
Absolutely. So
it's too bad we're getting his story through you, though. Too.
Well, that's right, and it'll live on. So, and I think the people that he helped over the years too, including all of us, showing all of us. He's got 2 beautiful daughters who are carrying on, and so they're, that's really someone. When you see class, and I just said this recently, I stole it from a TV show, but when you see class, whether it's a thoroughbred horse or someone with a lot of class that presents himself. You never forget it, and that's so classy. It's such a very correct thing to do.
I mean, I know very few people as respected as he was.
I'm very proud.
I mean, that is
Yep.
probably one of the most respected people I know in this
Yep.
town.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that turned out. He had a beautiful funeral. Scott Moss sang at his funeral. Summer Keever sang at his funeral, which I forgot to mention. Summer played with us in Jimmy Rehab, and we've already talked about what an incredible voice she has. So
She certainly did.
yeah, it's amazing.
At that time, was she married to Alan yet?
Yes, they were married. Yeah, they were, and that's why we tried to get her to sing, because David's like, "Have you ever heard Summer sing?" I'm like, "No." Can she sing? And he always said, "Well, let the wife sing, do this and that." And she started singing, and your mouth just falls open.
Oh yeah, it does. I mean,
because she's one of the best singers. I mean, that I've heard. Period.
Me too. I totally agree.
Summer's going to give me some. She's going to give me $5 if she ever hears this for pumping it up so much.
Well, I've done the same since she did that day.
We talked about the show.
I've spread a second round of accolades for her, I think, because everybody,
yeah,
Summer,
it's amazing.
everybody's like, I'm not really enough to sing the song.
She's happy though. They got a beautiful son now. And
actually, Lance Watson just told me.
Yeah.
She sang on "Dirty Grass Soul."
Really?
A song that he had written, but she sang it with Kevin.
Well, see, there's a tie-in too with Kevin. Kevin and my son Lee, they both were in theater at Shelby High School and were in several plays together.
Yeah, well, that's actually what Kevin.
Of course, I knew Kevin's folks.
When Kevin did the show, he pretty much told me that the reason he's a good front man is from that part of high school.
Right, Steve Paget, and
that's what he said.
Theater crew over there, Kathy Bergen, they took those kids and they ended up having just a superior program. My son even went to nationals. We went to competed.
It's a fine program.
Yeah. So that's kind of ties everything back in. So, but yeah, I've been very fortunate, and I'm not everybody might assume that, your musical taste and musical influences were unusual, but I don't. Aside from Eddie Van Halen, I don't really listen to any virtuoso guitarist. I appreciate all of them, but to me, you got to have that song. You got to have something. You got to have. Yeah, I mean, It's impressive to sit and watch somebody just go on and play in legato, all that stuff. It's impressive, but sometimes it turns into typewriter. I mean, you might as well watch them clicking on a keyboard.
I've also played with those guys that play. I don't mean to step on anyone's toes here, but every note they know on every song they play. Mm-hmm. I mean, know the guys.
Yeah.
They all do.
And so that's the thing. When I was young, I remember listening to a song on the record, and then you would get the live album. I love live albums. And you would realize, he didn't play that exactly like the record, and it sounds better.
Yeah.
So, I like to improvise and stuff. Some songs, though, you have to play it just like the record.
Or at least the trademark.
The trademark parts of it. You have to really do that.
You can't do. We'll use Keith Richards.
Yes.
Not the greatest guitar player,
No.
but the greatest hook.
Pocket.
Yes, and his trademark licks on songs, you have to play them.
Right, you have to play them like that. You have to get the tone.
Exactly.
Because if you don't, it just doesn't quite sound like it.
Work.
The case in point is I just picked up the guitar this morning to make sure I didn't get it wrong. The guitar solo in "Please Come Home for Christmas" by the Eagles. Yeah. You got to play that right. You got to play that right because people are expecting it. This song has been heard over and over and over again. So you got to do justice to that. Whether you play it exactly right, I don't know, but you got to get close.
You got to get close.
You can't just go up there and play somebody else.
No, and you just can't go up there and run a scale and call it a
No,
lead
you don't want to run. Turn it into some
exactly. So,
some Bach chorus thing.
Emulation sometimes is the greatest form of flattery.
Right,
so
right.
Sometimes you have to do that.
Well, I
like to improvise as much as anybody. But there's some things you got to play.
And you got to play it right, and you got to have a rhythm. I don't give guitar lessons anymore. I wasn't qualified to do it anyway. But I always, when I did, first thing I'd ask the student was, play a rhythm. Play something. And if they don't have rhythm, I said, you really need another hobby.
When I used to teach, no one wanted to learn the rhythm.
No.
No one wanted to learn chords and rhythm.
They want to learn the eruption. They want to learn stairway. They want to learn something, or Sweet Child of Mine.
You know as well as I do.
It's not going to work.
Real guitarist that is really good.
Yeah.
They have
impeccable rhythm.
They do.
Right. You listen to it time after time, and if you can't get that down, then you're not going to be able to play. I had a friend growing up in school, and bless his heart, he knew every single note to every single song. And I don't know, I haven't seen him in years, but he would play, and you can tell what he's playing.
Sure.
But he was playing all the chords.
Right.
He just didn't have any rhythm. But he loved music, so I never did say anything to him. I'm like, it's great.
I see singers a lot of times that can't get themselves in on songs. They can't.
True, yeah. You got to get it right. You got to hit the rhythm right.
And that comes back to rhythm too. It's like I can sing good, but you got to loop it 4 times around.
You got to do it on the 1 or do it on the 4, whichever one you're going to do. Yeah.
But for some reason,
like James Brown, you got to hit that 1. Bam.
Yeah, you do.
Which is another influence that
That's
unbelievable, but true.
Well, all musicians should have James Brown as an influence.
Yep.
Well, Jimmy, I do appreciate you.
Thank you, man.
You're a busy guy, and I appreciate you taking the time to come do this.
It's. I really wanted to do it. We've talked about this forever, and I'm glad we got to work it out and do it.
And I'm going to tell you guys, get out and see Ocean Boulevard. It'll be worth the time.
Yeah, get on our friend us on Facebook. Yeah. We've got a couple of these Christmas parties. We're next year. We got some things coming up. We're trying to get back in Shelby. One of the venues that we play around here. I don't know. We'll talk about that. I don't really have anything down in ink yet, but we're talking about it. We're going to get together after this party, and we're playing this weekend, and we're going to get together and sit down and.
Going back in studio?
That's part of what we're going to talk about. I want to go. There's a guy over here in Dallas, North Carolina, David Ryan, who's a great musician himself, and he's got a great studio in his basement. We've done some recording over there, and we're talking about going back. And you got to get everybody together and do it. But we loved it. The first time we did it, we got a nice recording out of it. But that was when we hadn't been together. I hadn't been with the band very long, and now I think we could really do a nice little markup. So we're going to talk about all our future plans. But get on Facebook and find us and join up, and you'll get our news feed of whenever we're playing.
That sounds good. Well, again, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Shamalama, baby, shamalama, ding dong. Hey, oh, back into my smile, child. Hey, that is why you are my shooby-dooby-doo. Yeah.